Okay, picture this. You've just been handed a top priority mission briefing. Who's it from? The Apostle Paul himself. And who's it for? His most trusted operative, a guy named Titus. And the objective is huge: bring order to absolute chaos. That's exactly what we're doing today. We're unpacking that very briefing, the Book of Titus from the New Testament. So let's dive in and see what this mission's all about.
So the mission zone is right here, the island of Crete, smack in the middle of the Mediterranean. Paul had already done some groundwork there, but he had to take off, leaving Titus to finish the job. And believe me, this was no easy assignment. We're not talking about a quiet little outpost. This was a really challenging place, full of brand new churches that were, well, they were a mess.
So yeah, that's the core problem, right? His mission is to bring order to chaos. But how? I mean, how do you even begin to build a healthy, stable community when it's getting hit from all sides, with pressure from the inside and the outside? Well, that's what this is all about. Paul's letter to Titus is basically the instruction manual for this incredibly high-stakes mission. All right, so any good mission briefing starts with two things: intel on your guy on the ground and intel on the location. So first up, a man, an island.
So just who was this guy, Titus? Well, for starters, he was no rookie. This guy was a veteran. He was a Greek Gentile, one of Paul's absolute closest partners, and he had a reputation for handling the tough assignments. We're talking about dealing with super tense situations in Jerusalem, navigating the drama in the famously difficult church in Corinth. Titus was the guy you sent in when things got complicated. Paul knew, without a doubt, he was the right man for this job.
Okay, so Paul's first order of business is crystal clear. Look, before you can fix any of the problems out in the congregation, you have to get the leadership right. You need a solid foundation. So he starts with the leadership blueprint.
And get this, Paul does not mess around. He lays out a staggering 17 different qualifications for anyone who's going to be a leader or an elder in these churches. Just that number alone tells you everything you need to know about how seriously he's taken this. The bar for leadership was set incredibly high.
Now, 17 qualifications sounds like a ton, I know, but you can actually boil them all down into three main buckets. First, there's personal character. You know, who is this person really when no one's looking? Second is family life. How do they manage their own home? And third, and this is huge, is doctrinal integrity. Is what they believe and teach actually solid?
And when you look at the specifics, you see a really clear focus. This isn't about finding the most charismatic speaker or someone with flashy gifts. It's all about integrity. A leader had to have a blameless character. They couldn't be arrogant or fly off the handle. They needed to be hospitable, self-controlled, and this last part is absolutely crucial. They had to be able to teach what's true and, just as important, correct people who are spreading lies.
And that last point about correcting falsehoods, man, that was absolutely critical. Because Titus wasn't just building a church. He was walking straight into a hornet's nest. He was confronting Cretan chaos.
The situation on the ground was straight up hostile. You had these rebellious, deceptive teachers crawling out of the woodwork. Paul calls them idle talkers, which is almost too nice. These people weren't just a little bit mistaken. They were intentionally misleading entire families. And why? It all came down to one thing: making a quick, dishonest buck. So to give Titus a really clear picture of what he was up against, the cultural landscape, Paul does something pretty shocking. I mean, you don't see this every day. He reaches back centuries and quotes one of Crete's own poets to paint a picture of the local reputation. And there it is. It's blunt, it's brutal, and it's from a Cretan. Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons. Wow. Look, this wasn't some rival city trash-talking them. This was from Epimenides, one of their own respected prophets from way back in the 6th century BC. And then Paul drops the hammer and says, "And that testimony is true." He wanted Titus to have zero illusions about the deep-seated cultural issues he was about to tackle. I mean, think about this. Their reputation was so well known that the ancient Greeks actually invented a verb from it, kretesein, to kretize, and it literally became slang for to lie and to cheat. That's the cultural water these new churches were swimming in. Just imagine trying to build a community based on truth in a place famous for lying. And this really gets to the heart of the problem with those false teachers. This giant, glaring contradiction. On one hand, they claimed to know God. They talked a big game. But on the other hand, their actions, their actual lives, completely denied him. Their lives were shouting a totally different message than their mouths were. Paul's verdict was harsh. They were unfit for any good deed. So what's the antidote to that kind of hypocrisy? How do you fix that? Well, Paul's solution wasn't just to throw more abstract theology at the problem. No, his strategy was all about connecting what you believe, sound doctrine, to how you actually live, day in and day out. It's about doctrine in daily life.
So Paul gets super practical here. He gives Titus specific instructions for all the different groups in the church. He's like, okay, the older men, they need to be temperate, dignified. The older women, be reverent, don't slander, teach what's good. For the younger women, it's about loving their families, being self-controlled. For the younger men, same thing, be self-controlled, be an example. Even slaves are told to act with good faith. See, every single instruction was tailored to show what a living, breathing faith actually looks like in the real world.
And the goal behind all of this? It was so simple and so important. When your behavior actually lines up with what you say you believe, it makes the whole message of God credible to the people on the outside looking in. The opposite, of course, is hypocrisy, which just completely torpedoes the very message you're trying to share.
But why? Why should they live like this? Is it just about following a bunch of rules to look good and impress the neighbors? Not at all. Paul wraps up his briefing with the real motivation, the engine behind all of this. And it's probably not what you'd expect. It's the grace motivation.
Okay, this right here is the theological heart of the whole letter. Paul makes it absolutely clear that living this new way is not about trying to earn your salvation through good works. It's not a checklist to get into heaven. Instead, it's the natural, powerful, gut-level response to a salvation you've already received as a free gift.
Paul puts it like this: for the grace of God has appeared. And I want you to notice what this grace does. It's not passive. He says it trains us. It's like a coach, an active force that teaches us to say no to all the godless ways and worldly passions, and to say yes to living self-controlled, upright, and godly lives right here, right now.
And this all connects back to the ultimate purpose of what Christ did. According to Paul, he gave himself for us for three big reasons. 1, to set us free from all that lawlessness. 2, to purify a people that would be his very own. And 3, and here it is again, the big theme, to create a people who are eager to do good. Not forced, not obligated, but genuinely passionate about.
So in the end, the whole mission in Crete, this whole letter to Titus, it really boils down to one single, powerful idea. What you believe has to show up in how you live. Sound belief must lead to sound living. Titus argues that our actions are our loudest, most convincing sermon. So the question, at least for all of us, is pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. What is your life saying?